Stage is yours.
Finish up here. I have to admit, I have never given a keynote this late in the evening, so aren't you all hungry? Yeah? Well, I'll make it short then. I noticed, well, first of all, just between you and me, I don't care where you stay as long as you drive a Mercedes and you use Canva, okay? I'm going to talk to you today about the lessons of Silicon Valley. And between the last panel or the session that I moderated and this, I went up and I checked Twitter, and you really tweet quite well in this audience. And so I'm very happy to be here because not many audiences use Twitter as well as you have. Now, what is this? Maybe I'm having dinner up here. That must be for the minister because, okay, so can I start now? I have this thing that says you're overtime by 4 minutes, time is up. Well, I didn't even start yet. So, my topic today is the lessons of Silicon Valley. It is about innovation and social media and everything I can possibly teach you in about 20 minutes about Silicon Valley. So I live in Silicon Valley. I live in Atherton, California. A historical photo from my past. This is a picture of the Macintosh division around 1984. I'm in the upper left-hand corner. Unfortunately, you can't really see me. I wasn't smart enough to stand in the front of this picture. In fact, I'm so stupid, I quit Apple twice and I turned Steve down for another job. So I kind of left Apple 3 times. The most important person in this picture is Steve Jobs. He's kneeling in the front. It's a very important picture because this is the only known instance of Steve Jobs ever getting on his knees for anybody. So this was the largest collection of egomaniacs in the history of California. That's saying a lot. There are a lot of egomaniacs in California. We held the record for about 30 years until Facebook broke the record. Back then, Apple was divided into the Apple II division, which was making all the money, and the Macintosh division, which was spending all the money because we were not yet finished. And yet, we would not let Apple II division employees into this building. And the Apple II division employees very quickly figured out that they were not being allowed into the building they paid for. So that upset them, and they came up with a great joke about us, which is how many Macintosh division employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is 1. The Macintosh division employee holds up the light bulb and expects the universe to revolve around him. For those of you who use Windows, wait, first of all, is Microsoft a sponsor of this cons? No? Okay. So, the Microsoft version of this joke is how many Microsoft employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the answer is none because Bill Gates has declared darkness the new standard. So because whenever people find out that I work for Steve, they always want a Steve Jobs story. Basically, everything you've heard about Steve is true. Every movie, every book, every article. Very difficult person to work for, extremely demanding, and yet I would not trade that experience for anything. I am where I am because of Steve Jobs. And I think the world is a lot less interesting without Steve Jobs. It's kind of boring, actually, because he truly did revolutionize and change the world. And yeah. So having said that, I can tell you that right now, he's telling God, or maybe gods, what to do. And he's designing Universe 2.0. So if you don't like this universe, just stick around because Steve is working on Universe 2.0. And because Steve is doing it, I can tell you a few things about Universe 2.0 already. First of all, it will be late. Secondly, it'll be the world's greatest universe ever, but then it's going to run out of power around 3 p.m. every day, just like your iPhone. And finally, none of the cables from this universe will work in the next universe. So that's what we're about to face. So I'm going to give you a presentation about the lessons of Silicon Valley. I'm not saying Silicon Valley has the monopoly on wisdom and how to do things, but these are the lessons that I've learned from Silicon Valley that I hope maybe you can apply as you try to create this great technology market here. So, number one is you cannot ask customers how to create a revolution, because customers can only tell you they want better, faster, cheaper, whatever they're already getting from you. So back then, as an Apple employee, if we asked Apple II owners, what would you like? They would say, better, faster, cheaper, Apple II. More RAM, more storage, faster chip. No one would have told us to build a Macintosh, because Macintosh was incompatible with Apple II, completely different software, operating system, chipset, everything was different. And I learned this very valuable lesson in Silicon Valley. If you truly want to innovate, you cannot ask your existing customer, because they're only going to tell you better, faster, cheaper. An even more stark example is this. This is a machine from Xerox PARC. This is the machine that really inspired Macintosh. And yet, when Xerox went to its customers, what do you think they told Xerox? We want a better, faster, cheaper copy machine, not a computer with a GUI. So lesson number one from Silicon Valley is customers cannot tell you how to truly revolutionize your business. They can tell you how to evolve your current business, but not how to revolutionize something. Second point. The second point is that true innovation occurs on the next curve. Whatever curve we're on, it's the next one where the big action happens. I like to use a very old example of ice. In the United States, there used to be an ice harvesting industry. This meant that people would go out to frozen lakes and ponds with saws and horses and sleighs and cut blocks of ice. 9 million pounds of ice was harvested in 1900. 30 years later, we have Ice 2.0. Now we have the ice factory. You couldn't harvest ice in Delhi, but you could have an ice factory in Delhi. The ice man delivered ice in the ice truck. This is much better than ice harvesting, because you can have an ice factory anywhere in the world, any season. Another 30 years go by, and now we have the refrigerator curve. And this is even better. Everybody had their own ice factory, a PC, if you will, a personal chiller. The very interesting historical fact is that none of the ice harvesters became ice factories, and none of the ice factories became refrigerator companies, because most organizations define themselves in terms of what they already do. If you define yourself as we freeze water centrally and deliver it in a truck, you do not embrace refrigerators. This next picture is one of the more scary pictures you could ever see. This is a picture from 1975. That device on the table, that is the first digital camera ever made. 1975. So far, so good, right? Digital camera, getting to the next curve. But here's the irony. This engineer was working for Kodak. Kodak invented the digital camera in 1975. How many of you are using a Kodak digital camera today? None of you. This is what I call the slide of death. Because Kodak defined its business as being in the film business, a chemical company. Polaroid defined its business as a chemical company putting chemicals on paper. Wang was a dedicated word processing company. Smith Corona was a typewriter company. These companies all fell victim to the same ice factory refrigerator curve phenomenon. If you define your business as a chemicals business on paper or film, you do not embrace digital photography. Kodak and Polaroid are truly in the business of preservation of memories, not of chemicals. And if you define your business as we're in the business of preserving memories, then you jump to the next curve. You create the next curve. You embrace digital photography. Wang, word processing. Smith Corona, typewriter. They define themselves as being in the word processing business or the typewriter business, as opposed to the communication of information. Hence, none of these companies are still here. Get to the next curve. The third thing that I learned in Silicon Valley is you have to aim high. That people want to work for a company that's going to, in the words of Steve Jobs, dent the universe. When we were working in the Macintosh division, this is my favorite picture of Steve Jobs flipping off IBM. When we were working there, he did not position the Macintosh as yet another personal computer. Macintosh was a battle. It was a battle against totalitarianism, a battle against control, a battle against George Orwell and an Orwellian society. So the way it was positioned to the Macintosh division employees, we're trying to preserve freedom as opposed to shipping a personal computer. Aim high. Number four is to invest in design. This is a picture of a MacBook Air. A MacBook Air is thin, it's beautiful. It looks like it was made by a Tibetan monk chanting, as opposed to the thick, black, ugly Windows laptop that probably many of you use. I think that Silicon Valley proves that it's not just the functionality, it's also the aesthetics. Thin, beautiful, aluminum. People care. People care about design. Number 5, there's a song called Don't Worry, Be Happy, and what I learned in Silicon Valley is don't worry, be crappy. This is the so-called MVP, the minimum viable product. And if you look at this is the Macintosh 128K. 128K, we thought that was an ocean of RAM. It had a 400K floppy drive. We thought that was an ocean of storage. Secretly, we were working on a hard disk. This hard disk was going to have 5 megabytes of storage. We used to sit around at Apple and have this conversation about what are people going to do with so much storage? My God, 5 megabytes of storage. $2,500, monochrome 9-inch display, too slow a chip, too slow a network. Thanks to my efforts, no software. This was a piece of crap, but it was a revolutionary piece of crap. And if we had waited for the chips and the color displays and the fast networking and all the good stuff to happen, we would have never shipped. Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn likes to say, if you don't cringe when you look back on version 1 of your product, you did not ship fast enough. You should cringe when you think of your first version. Number 6 is stolen from Chairman Mao. Let 100 flowers blossom. Let these flowers blossom. You know, in the mid-'80s, Apple thought that a Macintosh was good for spreadsheet, database, and word processing. We were 0 for 3 there. Luckily, there was this product, Aldus PageMaker. Aldus PageMaker created a field of flowers called desktop publishing, and desktop publishing saved Apple. If it wasn't for desktop publishing, there would be no Apple today. And this very valuable lesson is, you take your best shot in positioning and branding. What are people going to do with your computer? Who is the intended market for your computer? And then you ship, and reality sets in. And you may find that your computer is being rejected as a spreadsheet and database and word processing machine, but it is being welcomed enthusiastically with great success as a desktop publishing machine. My advice for you, if this ever happens to you in your career, is declare victory, take the money. Don't be proud. In Silicon Valley, the way it works is we throw a lot of things against the wall, lots of startup ideas. A few of them stick to the wall. Then we go up to the wall and we paint the bullseye around it and we say, we hit the bullseye. You know, if you ever can get a venture capitalist to talk to you in an honest manner, let's say someone at Kleiner Perkins or Sequoia, and you say, well, you know, you've done Apple, Cisco, Google, Yahoo, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook. How did you know you should invest in those companies? And the venture capitalist will say, it's because I have this inherent understanding of entrepreneurship. I knew this was a world-class team. I knew that they were in a growing market, and I knew they had patent-pending, curve-jumping, paradigm-shifting, enterprise-class, scalable, easy-to-use technology. And then if you ask the same venture capitalist, well then, why did you invest in web vans so people can buy broccoli online? Why did you invest in pets.com so people could buy dog food online? Why did you lose $400 million in those two investments? And the venture capitalist will say, I told my stupid partners not to do those deals. Number seven. Number 7 is a lesson in minimalism. And the best illustration I have for you of this is the slides of Steve Jobs. Less is more. This is a Steve Jobs slide. Big logo, 200-point type, 90-point type. iTunes, the best Windows app ever written. That is a Steve Jobs slide. As a rule of thumb, the bigger the font, the better the slide. The better the slide, the better the speaker. All right, so now, this is minimalism. This is maximalism. Now, you tell me where you're supposed to start reading this slide. Now, I cannot tell you that if you make a minimalist slide, it means you'll be successful. It takes more than that. I cannot also tell you that if you make a crappy slide like this, you will be unsuccessful, because clearly Bill Gates was quite successful. But I believe he overcame his slides. So given the choice, less is better than more. Minimalism wins. Number 8 is that I think many people believe that changing your mind is a sign of stupidity or weakness. And in Silicon Valley, it's quite the opposite. Our innovative approach using Web 2.0 based standards lets developers create amazing new applications while keeping the iPhone secure and reliable. Steve Jobs, June 11, 2007. This is saying that the iPhone is a closed system. Okay? And Apple closed the iPhone, making it necessary to use Safari plugins to add functionality to keep the phone secure and reliable. A year goes by. Apple executives to showcase Mac OS X Leopard and OS X iPhone development platforms at WWDC 2008 keynote. Let me translate this for you. Now, the iPhone is completely open. You can write any kind of app. So in 1 year, Steve Jobs basically completely reversed himself from closed system to open system. This is a sign of intelligence. This is a sign of courage. This is a sign of innovation. Don't be afraid to change your mind. Number 9, I think all of marketing comes down to one simple slide. And in this slide, we have 2 parameters: uniqueness on the vertical, value on the horizontal. This is the only thing you need to understand about marketing. If you get this right, all else marketing fails. Excuse me, all other marketing follows, not fails. So, in the bottom right corner, that's where you've created something valuable, but it is not unique. In that corner, you always have to compete on price. If you're Michael Dell and Lenovo and HP, and you put the same Windows operating system on the same hardware, it's always about price. In the upper left-hand corner, you have created something truly unique, but it is of no value. In that corner, you are just plain stupid. In the bottom left corner, you are stupid and you are crowded because you have created something that is not unique and not valuable, such as multiple ways to buy dog food online during the .com days. The corner you want to be in, the holy grail of marketing, is the upper right-hand corner. For example, when Apple introduced the iPod, it was unique and valuable. It was the only way that you could buy songs from the major music publishers at a low price, 99 cents, with a device that had a user interface that any human could use. It was unique and valuable. Another example, this is a brightening emergency watch. If you unscrew the big knob at the 5 o'clock position, out pops an antenna, and that antenna broadcasts signal to airplanes. Next thing you know, if you're in America anyway, if you do this, Kevin Costner will be in a Coast Guard helicopter. They'll be dropping him in a basket to rescue you. This is not something you do when you took the wrong exit off the freeway. This is something you do when you're a skier or a sailor or backpacker, camper, surfer, and you're about to die. This watch can save your life. And this is a smart car. You know, everybody has cars that can park parallel to the curb. How many of us have cars that can park perpendicular to the curb? If parking is really tight, this is a unique and valuable car. Number 10. Number 10 is about ignoring naysayers. I call them bozos, as in clowns. There are two kinds of bozos in the world. One is disgusting, slovenly, pocket protector, body odor, Japanese watch, rusty car, you know? And you look at that person and you say, wow, you're a loser. That is not the dangerous bozo, because only a loser would listen to a loser. So if you're not a loser, the loser bozo is not a danger to you. The danger is the winner bozo, because the winner bozo dresses in all black. The winner bozo owns things that end in I, like Maserati, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Armani. The winner bozo is rich and famous, and many people think that rich and famous parses to smart. But that is not true. Many times, rich and famous parses to lucky, not smart. And so I need to inoculate you to bozosity, so that when you encounter bozosity in your life, you remember that you went to the Economic Times conference and Guy Kawasaki showed you examples of rich, famous, powerful people who said such dumb things. For example, I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers. Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM, 1943. I have 5 computers, 5 Macintoshes in my house. I have all the computers he anticipated in the world in my house today. This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. Western Union wrote off telephones in 1876. Maybe the strategic direction for Western Union in 1877 was, let's teach Americans the Morse code. Then we can put a telegraph in every house. How hard could it be for every American to learn the Morse code? And as Americans get more mobile, we'll have telegraphs with long bales of copper wire to put into their horse-pulled carts, and that will be our mobile solution. Western Union should have jumped the curve to telephony, to the internet, but it's so hard to do that. And they wrote off telephony in 1876. There's no reason why anyone would want a computer in their home. Ken Olsen, founder of DEC, a fantastic innovator, fantastic entrepreneur. But he was so successful making mini computers, he could not embrace personal computers. And this is a real dangerous example, because imagine if you're Steve and Woz, you're starting Apple, and all your advisors and investors are telling you, you need some adult supervision. You need someone who's been there and done that, someone who's built a hardware company, someone like Ken Olsen. Get him as an investor, advisor, a director. So by chance, You meet Ken Olsen, and you tell Mr. Olsen in an elevator, Mr. Olsen, we have a different vision for personal computing. We think personal computers should be small, cheap, and easy to use. So small, so cheap, so easy to use, Mr. Olsen, that you could have a computer in your house. And Mr. Olsen instead says, son, there is no reason why anyone would want a computer in their house. If they want to balance their checkbook, they will drive back to the office and use Quicken running on a DEC mini computer. So before you ruin your life, learn COBOL and come work for DEC. And there would be no Apple today. Don't let the naysayers and the bozos grind you down. And my last slide that truly personifies Silicon Valley is this, that many times people are skeptics and they're negative. And they say that, you know, if you show it to me, if I can see it, I'll believe it. But the lesson of Silicon Valley, overarching, is that some things need to be believed to be seen. If you believe in Macintosh and write software for Macintosh, you'll see it. If you believe that strangers will rent rooms from people they've never met, and if you believe that people will rent their homes to people they've never met, if you believe that, then you'll see an Airbnb. And it takes this great leap of faith to be successful. And that, of all lessons, is the greatest lesson of Silicon Valley. Some things need to be seen to be believed. And I'm going to ask you for one more thing. So, I've noticed how great this audience is with Twitter and pictures. And so, if you're going to tweet a picture of this session, this is my new book. It's coming out on Tuesday. Take this picture now, okay, and tweet this. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy, for your wonderful lessons from Silicon Valley.